You've been hurt before, cut by words sharper than knives, shattered by silences heavier than stone. You promised yourself it would never happen again. You built walls, made vows, whispered promises in the dark. Never again. And yet it did. The same patterns, the same betrayals. The same ache, wearing a different face, speaking with a different voice, but carrying the same wound straight into your chest. You wonder why life keeps repeating itself, why the people who should have loved you most became the ones who carved the deepest scars, why no matter how hard you try to protect yourself, you seem to step into the same storm again and again. Here is the paradox. You think it's other people who keep hurting you. But Jung might say the wound isn't outside, it's within. The hurt is ancient. It began long before this partner, this friend, this betrayal. It began the moment you believed you were powerless, the moment you decided that silence was safer than truth, the moment you confused being loved with being small. That is where the crack opened, and until you face it, the same story will find you. But here is the liberation. Once you see where the wound really lives, nothing and nobody can hurt you again in the old way, because the wound doesn't close by sealing yourself off from the world. It closes the moment you stop abandoning yourself. Think of it this way. What feels like pain from others is often just a mirror, reflecting back the cracks you refuse to face. Every rejection exposes the fear of unworthiness you buried. Every betrayal touches the distrust you already carried. Every insult lands only where it finds a hidden bruise. And the moment you turn inward, the moment you embrace the shadow you've been running from, life shifts. You stop repeating. You stop bowing to ghosts. You no longer walk blindly into the same traps because you are awake to your own patterns. This isn't coldness, it isn't cynicism. It's not about becoming untouchable. It's about becoming whole. It is liberation. The discovery that the fortress you've been searching for has been inside you all along. And from that moment on, nothing and nobody can truly hurt you again. The real danger isn't heartbreak. It's repetition. It's the ache that returns with different faces, different voices, different stories, yet feels exactly the same. It's the betrayal that seems new, but underneath carries the same wound you swore you'd never touch again. And here's the truth. It isn't bad luck. It isn't fate choosing you as its target. It's a pattern. How many times have you forgiven the unforgivable, calling it love? How many times have you excused cruelty as just how they are? How many nights have you rehearsed the words you wish you'd said, while knowing deep down you would have swallowed them anyway? This is not coincidence. Jung might call it the unconscious at work, your hidden wounds pulling you like a magnet toward the very people who can tear them open again. He would say the shadow writes the script you refuse to read, and then casts actors to play the role of your teacher. It feels like destiny, but it's not. It's repetition compulsion. It's the psyche's way of dragging old pain back into the light, hoping you will finally confront it. But here's the cost of not seeing it. Every time you let someone cross you without resistance, you betray yourself. Every time you accept pain as normal, you reinforce the lie that you deserve it. Every time you stay silent when you want to speak, you tighten the chains around your own voice, until the line between victim and participant blurs, and you can no longer tell if life is happening to you or through you. And slowly you begin to wonder, am I cursed or am I complicit? This is the danger. If you don't wake up to the pattern, it will run your entire life. You will keep calling it love while it quietly devours you. You will keep calling it loyalty while it eats away at your soul. You will keep calling it fate while it's really just an unhealed wound dragging you back into the same fire, again and again. The stakes are high. If you don't break the cycle, you will spend your whole life rehearsing pain instead of transcending it. You will become an actor trapped in the same play, repeating the same lines, never realizing the script can be rewritten. And the moment you see this, the moment you recognize the pattern as your own unconscious reaching for healing, you hold the key. The key to ending the repetition. The key to reclaiming your story. The key to making sure nothing and nobody can ever wound you in the same way again. You weren't born with this script. You were trained into it. As a child, you learned what love looked like by how it was given, or withheld. Maybe warmth came only when you were quiet, obedient, convenient. Maybe anger came when you spoke your truth too loudly. Maybe neglect taught you that your needs were too heavy, too inconvenient, too much to carry. So you adapted. Survival demanded it. You folded yourself into smaller shapes. You bit back words. You taught yourself to anticipate moods, to sense tension before it erupted, to soothe others so they wouldn't turn on you. You became the pleaser, the peacekeeper, the one who bends so others won't break. Jung might call this the persona, the mask you wear to survive, the face you present so the world doesn't see how fragile you really feel. But here's the cruel irony. The more faithfully you wear the mask, the less anyone truly sees you. The agreeable face hides the storms beneath. The polite smile covers the ache for authenticity. And the longer you live unseen, the more invisible you begin to feel. And when invisibility sets in, something desperate awakens. You cling harder. You overgive. You offer yourself in fragments, hoping someone will notice the sacrifice and finally confirm what you already doubt, that you matter. But the more you cling, the more you slip away. The more you give, the less of you is left. This is why the same patterns follow you, like shadows across decades. The friend who only calls in crisis, never to ask how you are. The partner who pushes past your comfort because you never push back. The boss who demands until you collapse because you've trained them to believe your time has no edges. Without boundaries, the world does not reward you. It does not thank you. It consumes you. And the frightening part is that people don't even see the consumption as cruelty. They see it as normal. They assume you don't mind, because you taught them not to. So you live as if your worth depends on your usefulness. You smile when you want to cry. You say yes while your chest whispers no. And in time, you feel the quiet erosion of your soul. But eventually, something inside rebels. You can't carry the weight anymore. You collapse. Maybe you stop answering messages. Maybe you withdraw from a partner. Maybe you snap at work after years of quiet endurance. Suddenly, the mask slips. And what do they say? You've changed. But the truth is, you haven't changed. You've returned. You've returned to the child who once spoke her truth before she learned it was dangerous. You've returned to the boy who once cried loudly before he was told tears made him weak. You've returned to the person you always were, beneath the layers of performance, beneath the persona you built to survive. And though they may call it selfish, though they may call it cold, this return is not betrayal. It is resurrection. Because the life you lose by wearing the mask is not worth the approval it buys. And the life you regain by setting it down, by drawing the first trembling boundary, by daring to be seen as you are, that life is real. That life is yours. And when you live from that place, nothing and nobody can consume you again. Why did you allow it for so long? Fear. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of being disliked. Fear of being seen as selfish or difficult. Fear that if you ever stopped bleeding for others, you'd be left with nothing. So you bent. You smiled when you wanted to scream. You said yes when everything inside you was begging for no. You shrank your needs, swallowed your voice, softened your truth. You told yourself it was noble. You told yourself it was love. But underneath it was fear wearing the mask of kindness. Deep inside you believed a lie. That love must be earned through sacrifice, that kindness is measured by how much pain you can endure. That your worth is defined not by who you are, but by how well you disappear for others. And so you disappeared piece by piece. But here's the truth Jung might remind you of. What you repress doesn't vanish. It waits. Every unspoken no lodges itself in your chest as tension. Every fake smile turns into silent rage simmering just below the surface. Every swallowed truth becomes a stone in your stomach, heavy and unmoving. Until one day, the weight becomes unbearable. That is when depression enters, not out of nowhere, but as the slow accumulation of all the times you betrayed yourself. That is when anxiety sharpens, not as a random curse, but as the body screaming against its own silencing. That is when burnout arrives, not from working too hard, but from constantly carrying the burden of your own absence. And still, you tell yourself this is love, that this is loyalty, that this is the price you must pay to belong. But look closely at the paradox. The more you erase yourself for others, the lonelier you become, even when surrounded by people. Because what you call intimacy without boundaries is not intimacy at all. It is exploitation wrapped in affection. It is connection without recognition. It is presence without respect. You wonder why the ache never leaves, why no amount of giving ever feels enough, why even in a crowded room you feel invisible. The answer is simple. Because you are. They cannot see you if you refuse to show yourself. They cannot hear you if you silence your own voice. They cannot love you if you will not let yourself exist in the relationship. The real cost is not what they did to you. The real cost is what you did to yourself. You abandoned yourself each time you chose peace over honesty. You abandoned yourself each time you laughed off the insult, swallowed the pain, excused the cruelty. You abandoned yourself each time you thought keeping them close was worth losing yourself. And betrayal always leaves a scar, especially when the betrayal is your own. But scars are not the end. Scars are reminders, reminders of what can no longer continue. They whisper, "This is the line. Do not cross it again." So ask yourself, how much of your suffering comes not from what others inflicted, but from what you allowed in the name of love? How much of your exhaustion comes not from carrying others, but from abandoning yourself? This is the turning point. To see the cost not as fate, but as choice. To realize that the hurt you feared most, being abandoned, was already happening but from within. And once you see it, you can choose differently. You can stop the slow erosion. You can refuse the old lie. You can reclaim the truth. Love is not earned through self-erasure. Love begins when you refuse to vanish, because the moment you stop betraying yourself, you discover something extraordinary. Nothing and nobody has the power to hollow you out again. So what does it really mean to make sure nothing and nobody can hurt you again? It doesn't mean shutting down. It doesn't mean building walls so high that nothing can reach you. It doesn't mean hardening into stone, pretending you don't care, or numbing yourself to life. That is not strength, that is exile. The real strength is different. It means rooting yourself so deeply, so firmly, that no storm can uproot you. It means strengthening your foundation until you no longer collapse at every gust of disappointment. It means becoming so whole that no one else's fracture can define you. And how do you do that? By facing what you've been running from. By turning toward the shadow instead of away from it. Jung would say the shadow is not your enemy. It is the part of you you've exiled. The anger you refused to own, the fear you denied, the hunger you tried to bury. So you begin by saying, yes. Yes, I am angry. Yes, I am afraid. Yes, I want more than this. Because wholeness is not about being endlessly good. It's not about fitting into everyone else's image of who you should be. Wholeness is about being real, and reality begins with small acts of courage. Say no once this week, even if your voice trembles. Pause before you agree to anything and ask yourself, do I want this? Not, will this upset them? Not, will they still like me if I refuse? Only, do I want this? Speak your truth in little ways. Let your no be no. Let your yes be yes. Watch how your body shifts, how your chest opens, how your breath deepens when you finally stop betraying yourself. Yes, people will resist. They will push back. They are addicted to the old version of you, the one who bent, who yielded, who absorbed their weight without protest. When you change the script, they will protest, but the storm of their discomfort will pass, and what remains will be far greater, the calm of self-respect. Think of fire. Fire does not apologize for burning. It doesn't justify its heat, doesn't explain its nature. It simply burns. It warms what belongs near. It illuminates what stands in the dark, and it consumes what cannot survive in its presence. Your boundaries are that fire. They are not cruelty. They are clarity. They are not punishment. They are truth. They are not rejection. They are the conditions that make real connection possible. When you live like this, something profound happens. You stop walking into the same traps. You stop confusing exploitation with intimacy. You stop mistaking fear for love. And little by little, you discover what Jung called the privilege of a lifetime, becoming who you truly are. Not the mask, not the persona, not the obedient, convenient version of yourself others demanded, but you, the full, flawed, radiant self, who no longer needs permission to exist. And from that place, nothing and nobody can truly hurt you again, because you no longer abandon yourself. And once you stop abandoning yourself, no one else's rejection can define you. This is the transformation. This is the practice. And it begins not with grand declarations, but with one trembling no, one honest truth, one moment of fire. That is how you rise. That is how you return. That is how you make sure the old wound never rules your life again. So the next time life tempts you with the same old wound, pause. Breathe. Remember this: you are no longer powerless. Nothing and nobody can hurt you again. Not in the old way. Not in the way that collapses your soul and convinces you to vanish. Yes, the world will test you. The same kinds of people may appear. The same situations may try to lure you back into silence, into shrinking, into giving yourself away. But you are different now. You carry awareness. You carry fire. And awareness is armor no blade can pierce. They may misunderstand. They may whisper that you've become cold, selfish, distant. But don't be fooled. These are just the words of those who thrived on your erasure. And let them misunderstand. Because the ones who matter, the ones who are meant to walk beside you, will not be frightened by your truth. They will respect the lines you draw. They will love the you that no longer hides behind a mask. And this is the heart of it. Once you stop abandoning yourself, the world can wound you less and less. Not because it stops throwing storms, but because you are no longer willing to drown in them. You stand rooted, steady, unshaken. You are not unbreakable because nothing touches you. You are unbreakable because you have learned to touch your own soul first. You have learned to give yourself the love, the recognition, the loyalty you once begged from others. Jung was right. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And the moment you accept yourself completely, without apology, the world transforms. Not into perfection, but into truth. And truth, however sharp, is always kinder than illusion. Not everyone will stay, and that's okay. The ones who do, the ones who can stand in the fire of your authenticity, will finally meet the real you. And that is worth everything.